Howdy YouTube family, it's Bold CRNA coming to you again with another day's topic. So today I want to talk about rejection from your CRNA program. A lot of people watch us on YouTube or Instagram, people who are, whether they're in CRNA school or they're already CRNAs, and they see accomplishments and goals being met and a lot of positivity, but what they don't see in their highlight reel of their life is the rejections. The negative aspects, the times where you wanted to give up, the times where you were told no, the times you were told you're not good enough. Every one of us has had that happen to us. So today, I want to talk a little bit about that. Let's get into it. Let's begin back in 2014 and 2015 when I was preparing to apply to CRNA school. Back then, there was not these Instagrammers online. There weren't YouTubers making videos about CRNAs or about being in CRNA school. There was nothing. There was not really any resources unless you knew someone personally who was a CRNA or a physician anesthesiologist. You just did not have that connection. You didn't really know the inside scoop of the anesthesia world. Your only hope was to do a little bit of shadowing, and hopefully someone would allow you to do that. And you try and figure out from that person for those limited amount of days exactly what to expect with the career field. But that was definitely no guarantee that you knew exactly what to ask in interview questions to get into CRNA school. It definitely wasn't an indicator to let you know what good programs you should apply to or what programs you should see as red flags. The only thing that I did have back then was allnurses.com. A lot of you guys may know what that site is. Back in the day, that was like a really big forum site for a lot of nurses to go onto and talk about different topics and interesting things. I used to go there to look at CRNA stuff because there was a little CRNA forum, and it was dead most of the time. You know, every month there might be one person posting, and it was usually a nurse who was trying to get into CRNA school and was asking and pleading, please would a CRNA come and talk to us about how to get in, or details about this elusive career that nobody seems to know anything about. So I of course would look every day or every other day to see, did someone post anything? Is there, something legitimate about getting into CRNA school or about the career field that I can use as information to help me get in? One of the few helpful things that I saw on there was CRNA, who I have no idea if they were CRNA or not, legitimately, they just claim to be, said that when you interview for a CRNA program, you should ask about whether they do independent rotations, whether you're trained to be an independent provider, and ask how many peripheral nerve blocks, like numerically, how many peripheral nerve blocks do most of your students graduate with, and how many central lines and PA catheters do your students graduate putting in a live environment, not in a sim lab. I didn't really know why that mattered that much, and it didn't really matter to me at the time. I was a nurse and I had no idea about the intricacies of the anesthesia world, and so then it comes time to go through all the CRNA programs, which back then the only site that you really could figure that out on was allcrnaschools.com. Now I would recommend that students go to COA.com, councilonaccreditation.com, and they have a list of all of their programs there that I think is a much better list and has more accurate, detailed information. But back then, the only thing I knew about was allcrnaschools.com. So I went through, I made a list, figured out exactly which programs met, the kind of criteria that I had, meaning any program that was a doctoral program, because back then there weren't that many. Maybe 30% of the programs had transitioned back then to doctoral, and I knew I wanted to go to a doctorate program. So I only had those 30% to pick from. And then from that 30%, it had to be a program that didn't require biochemistry in undergrad, or they wanted a specific organic 1 and 2 course, or if they wanted a physics course. There's quite a few programs out there that want an assortment of these types of classes, and those are not normal classes that you take for your BSN, and I felt like I had plenty of sciences, and I did not feel like that was a relevant request. And there was plenty of other CRNA programs that didn't request those things, so I whittled down my list to 3 schools. Out of these 3 schools, 2 of them had the application cycle beginning in early fall. So in the year 2015, I had my CCRN, I had my GDRE, I can go through that in a whole other different video, this whole long process of getting myself ready to apply to CRNA school. But I had my letters of recommendation, I had everything ready at that point, and I applied to those 2 programs. The 3rd program, their application cycle didn't start until late fall, early winter. So I wasn't gonna worry about that one yet. So I applied to my first 2, really excited. I waited about a month and I got response from one of the programs, actually what was kind of what I thought my top program out of all 3. I thought this was gonna be the program I wanna get into. The reason being, it was a big name program. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to reveal exactly which name of this program it is, but we'll say this is a world-renowned program that produces lots of research and is well known in the healthcare world and is a prestigious name. So this is the kind of thing that I assumed would have premium, top quality education with the best equipment and the best kind of training environment, and they would offer me the best of the best. And I thought, this is where I need to go get my anesthesia training. So I was over the moon elated when I got my letter in the mail saying, hey, we would love to have you come in and interview with us in November. Now, this was October when I got the letter. And so in November, they said, can you come in and interview? Now, granted, I was working in the ICU at the time. The day that they wanted me to come in and interview, I had a stretch of 4 12-hour shifts. I had been scheduled up to work the days before that, and then I was scheduled to work the weekend after. So that was literally like my one off day. So I booked my ticket. It's of course like 2 different connecting flights because of the odd hours I had to book it at, and it was very expensive. I had to also pay for a hotel room. So all in all, it was about $1,000 I invested in just getting to that program to interview. So I get there the morning of, go in at 8 a.m. expecting an interview, all excited, and I go into a room and there's like 30 other people in this room. And I find out this is gonna be an odd group interview that I wasn't really prepared for. And so they had me sit down in my chair, and they then make us all get up in front of the other applicants and the professors who are going to be picking whether these students get in or not, and talk about ourselves. We had to talk about our ICU experience. We had to talk about what made us unique. We had to talk about why we wanted to be a CRNA, and we had to talk about what made us deserving of a slot in this program. Pretty much in front of everyone else who's also applying. It's like you're telling them what makes you special and why you deserve this over them. Then after that, we had to write a short essay that was on a random topic they gave us, and then they were going to judge our writing skills. Then after that, they toured us around the facility. So at this point, we started feeling more like friendly, and you started feeling like maybe they like us. Maybe out of the 30 in this room, they've kind of decided they want us in. Maybe there's something going on here. Maybe we're the only 30 they're truly interviewing because they kind of know they want to, take us. And because they start showing us all over the ORs, they introduce us to CRNAs who work for that university hospital system. They introduce us to first and second and third year students in their programs. They even take us to lunch and buy us lunch and pay for everything. So it started feeling like they were welcoming us kind of into the program. And so I started to feel very confident. I thought, this is great. I'm in, this is where I want to be. And I started picturing myself in their program. Then after that, they set up a round robin room. There was like 7 rooms. And each of these rooms had about 2 or 3 professors with clipboards, and each professor had a couple questions. And they would send each one of us students into each room, and you'd have about 2 minutes in each room, and you just keep rotating rooms until every student has met in every room. And so when you sit down in the room, there's a timer on, and they immediately ask you a question, and you have like moments to respond. They don't give you time to think up a correct answer, and you don't know what they're going to ask you in advance. And mostly what they asked was questions like, tell me a difficult time that you had a patient and you disagreed with the care plan or what was going on that the physician was doing for the patient. How did you advocate for the patient, and what was the outcome of that situation? Describe a difficult clinical situation that you've been in. What's the most challenging clinical situation, and how did you fix that situation? What did you do? How did you use your critical thinking skills to save a patient? Then I got to my final room, which happened to have the program director, who was a CRNA, in there. And then this other character, it was a physician anesthesiologist, and I don't know what role they exactly served. It was something like, I think it was called medical director of the group or something like that. I had not seen another CRNA program before that had physician anesthesiologists involved in their management infrastructure, and especially not directly involved in interviewing students and electing students into the programs and stuff. So I was kind of thrown off by that person being in there, but I didn't think much about it. And their questions were more like, what makes you pick our program? What are your future goals as a CRNA? And then what got me is, what do you think about independent practice for a CRNA? And what do you plan to do as a CRNA? Like, what kind of practice do you plan to work in as a CRNA? And of course, being me, I answered that I believe in independent practice for CRNAs, and that's something that I'm very drawn to about the career field, is that they're trained to be autonomous and they've been around for over a century, and that they can practice independently. And I even brought up the fact that I was hoping that we got to do a lot of central line insertions and peripheral nerve blocks, and I took that moment to ask them, how many blocks do we technically get to do, like directly hands-on, not witness someone else do, or actually do in a sim lab, but actually do them on patients, because I said that was important to me. And the frown on the physician anesthesiologist's face got deeper and deeper and deeper as I continued to talk. And I thought, I didn't think too much about it, but a red flag went off in my head thinking, this isn't good. This person doesn't seem to like me for some reason. Of course, I'm completely ignorant to politics at this point in the anesthesia world. Back then, years ago, like I said, there wasn't all this online discussion that you could just look up. There wasn't as much knowledge about that kind of stuff. So I didn't think anything about this. So the interview finishes. I leave there thinking, this is it. I've done it. I've gotten in. Everything went great. Some of the professors that interviewed me in the room said that they told me, you're a delight. You're so funny. We love your Southern charm and accent. And we can't wait to see you hopefully next year when the classes begin, when the matriculating class starts. And we have a good feeling about you and things like that. So I left feeling like, this is great. I feel like I answered a lot of the questions perfectly. That one person seemed to not like me that much, but it didn't matter to me, because that's just one person out of like 15 who I'd met who seemed to like me. So I left feeling like I need to find an apartment out here. I need to start figuring out what I'm going to be doing when I move out here, how I'm going to move, all that stuff. So I'm back at home. I'm working in the ICU. I get, I guess about a week or two passes, and I get a letter in the mail saying that the second program that I had applied to earlier, that I hadn't heard anything back from at all yet, it was just silence on their part. They sent me a letter saying, hey, we're actually not able to extend you even an interview, and thank you, but goodbye. And I thought, that is really strange, because I knew I had a strong application. Like I had a good application, at least one that should grant me an interview. So I thought, let me call the program or email them and try and get in contact with them and figure out, like, is there something wrong with my application? Was I missing some kind of information? I wasn't that worried about it, because I kind of had it in my head I was getting into this other program anyway, but I was still curious that, like, I paid $100 for the application fee and sent this into you, like, what's going on here? And nobody answered the phones for their program. None of the numbers on the website worked. I emailed people and it got redirected to me, and I thought, okay, something's going on with their program. Like maybe they lost accreditation or something happened. I don't know, but whatever's going on seems not good. So maybe it's fine that I don't go over there, because it sounds like it's not organized well there. So I just kind of wrote that off. And besides, in my head I was thinking, I'm already going to this other program anyway. So then another week passes and I get a letter from this big name school, and I'm all excited, and I rip it open and I start scanning down the letter, and really I'm just looking for the words, congratulations, you're accepted, and I don't see them. And so my stomach sinks and I think, this is strange. Maybe I need to actually go through and start reading what the words are saying on here. And as I'm reading it, it's saying, we regret to inform you that we're not able to extend you a spot in our program this year. but you've been waitlisted pretty much. Now, for those of you who don't understand what waitlisting means, it means they kind of liked you a little bit, but not really enough to get their top like 30 slots that they give away to students. And being on the wait list means it potentially, say some of the students who that got the original top 30, if they pick a different program maybe instead, or choose to not go to CRNA school at the last minute, or maybe can't afford to pay the deposit you have to pay, or whatever it is, their spot may be opened up and then you might get picked. But what also happens on wait lists is usually you don't know what number you are at on a wait list. So there could be like 10 other people in front of you who they like even more than you on the wait list, and say there's 9 people who drop from the original 30, you still may not get selected from the wait list because the other 9 people on the wait list that they like more than you get those 9 spots. They did offer for me to call the program director and have a conversation with them briefly, just to kind of give me feedback on what I should improve on, or what was maybe done wrong in the interview, or anything that I could do to maybe get in the following year if I reapplied. So you can imagine at this point, I'm devastated. I thought that I was in. I had already started planning my future there. I already started looking at apartments and where I was gonna, move to. I had already kind of told a lot of my friends and family, like, hey, I interviewed, it seems like a done deal. Like, hey, it looks like I'm going to this school next year, this is all exciting. Because my friends and family knew that I had been working years to get prepared for CRNA school. And I just remember feeling embarrassed, ashamed. I felt like maybe I'm not that smart. Maybe I'm not that good. Maybe I'm not, interesting or capable, or maybe I'm not supposed to be a CRNA. Maybe I'm just not smart enough and I just didn't realize it. So I started thinking about different careers. I started thinking maybe I should go work in business. Maybe I should go to grad school and get a master's in business administration. Or maybe I should start spinning off into a more corporate role in healthcare and get a grad degree in something else. And I remember I just felt lost. I just felt lost and confused. I was 27, I think, at the time, and I feel like I had been planning for something for years of my life. Most of my adult 20s, I was planning for something, and now I felt like a roadblock had been put in place, and I felt like this, isn't going to happen for me. So I went to coffee with a mentor of mine who knew I was feeling down, and they just sat with me and talked to me and said, like, hey, you can't give up. You can't just change your whole career and trajectory and your goals based off one rejection. Life's going to reject you. Life is going to hand you really hard things, and if you allow one time of being rejected to throw you totally off course, you're never going to get anywhere in life. You won't achieve anything great because you're going to get rejected more than just this one time. And even though that seemed kind of like a depressing way to give advice, I understood they were right, and that I probably was going to get rejected and have bad things handed to me in the future. And if I don't learn to pick myself back up, decide this is what I want, I have worked for this, and I am going to keep working towards my goal no matter what, I'm not going to achieve what I want out of life. After that, I called the program director from the big name school that rejected me and said, hey, what did I do wrong? What did I do that I should improve upon? Because I thought I'll do those things for them and I'll reapply next year and I'll come back and I'll get in and I'm going to work hard at this. And I spoke to them on the phone and they honestly told me, they couldn't really tell me anything that I did wrong. And they said, you have all the certifications, you have great experience, you have great letters of recommendation, you scored well on your GRE, you interviewed well, people liked you. They said you were a delight, a lot of the professors did. She said, we just thought you wouldn't enjoy it here. And I didn't know what she meant. And she said, you're from the South, it's very cold here. This happened to be somewhere that was in the North, and the winters are very cold. She was like, we thought you wouldn't enjoy the winters here. And that's pretty much it. That was all she told. Oh, and she said, and we noticed that you were wearing a shirt and a tie, but you weren't wearing a suit jacket. And so we felt like that meant you weren't very serious about our program. And I thought, wow, So all of that, and I didn't get in because of a suit jacket, and you thought because I'm from the South, I wouldn't handle the cold for 3 years. At the time, I was totally confused and lost. Now, in retrospect, I know exactly the moment I did not get into that program. Now that I know that program, and I actually have friends who went to that program, I understand they don't do nerve blocks there. They do most of their nerve blocks in a sim lab. Because at that major academic center, those blocks go to residents on a block team. They don't go to the SRNAs. The central line insertions, that's done almost entirely in a sim lab. The practice that they're given there is complete medical direction 98% of the time. That program director did me a great favor. So at this point, I realized my third program I almost had forgotten about, because in all of these ups and downs of the last couple of months, I had forgotten it's time to apply to the other program. I only had maybe a week left in the application cycle availability to even apply to that program. So I rushed together my application, sent it in, kind of nervous about it, because I'm still trying to get over the idea of I just got rejected. I just spent $1,000 out of pocket, and a great stressful day out of my time for nothing, essentially, is what I equated it to be, for nothing. It wasn't for nothing. It was a good life experience. You're hearing the story now. It shaped me into who I am in this moment. So it's not for nothing, but nobody likes to spend $1,000 and not get what they wanted. So I'm thinking, I'm going to spend another $1,000, maybe even more, to apply to this third program, because if I fly out there and interview, I'm going to have to pay for a rental car, because it's kind of out in the country a little bit, so it's not in the city area. I'm going to have to drive out there. I'm going to have to get a rental car. The flight was cross country from where I was at the time. It was going to be a couple days. I was going to take off from work. So it was kind of an ordeal to do this. And so when I applied, I thought, you know what, I'm giving it this a try, because I'm going to keep working at this goal. I applied, they extended me an interview and said, hey, can you come out here in March? It's the last couple days we're interviewing students before we make our final decisions in this program. You might get in. And I had already heard that they take, it's kind of like rolling admissions, I think they call it, where as they start interviewing people throughout October, November, December, the people they really like, they lock down then. So they start filling up their slots as they're interviewing people through the winter. So I'm coming at the very tail end. I'm like in the last 2 days that they're interviewing people before they give the last couple slots away. And I thought, this is a wild card if I get in here, but I'm gonna try. So I flew out there, got a rental car, drove to campus, stayed the night in the hotel that night because it was late at that point, and got up the next morning, came in for the interview, super nervous. Everything just felt right. Everything there just felt calm. I felt at peace when I was talking to the professors. The interview was not a group interview. It was one-on-one with, it was a group as far as like 3 or 4 of the professors were sitting in a room with the program director, and you were at the head of this round table, and they were asking you questions, and it was some difficult questions, but they seemed more friendly. They seemed more like they were interested in me. They already knew about my GPA. They already knew about my work history. They knew all these details. They didn't want me to regurgitate all that to them. They've heard it millions of times. They wanted to know who I was as a person, what made me unique, what brought me to this point in my life, and what was driving me to be this person that I'm wanting to be, this CRNA. I left that interview feeling good about it, but a little gun shy. I wasn't sure. I didn't really know, because I felt good after the other time that I interviewed. So at this point, I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna be cautious. I'm gonna be humble and cautious. I'm gonna fly back to Los Angeles. I'm gonna go back to work tomorrow. I'm not gonna announce to all my friends that I got into a program or anything like that. I'm just going to think about it. I'm gonna meditate on it. I'm gonna pray about it, and I'm gonna see if this is where I'm supposed to be. Then I will get that phone call or that piece of mail that's gonna say, hey, you got in. And I'll never forget, it was the following day. I was back at work again. I was tired because, of course, I've been flying everywhere, and I've been, stressed out, and I barely got any sleep the night before, and I'm up, working all day in the ICU. And I get a phone call on my cell phone that says it's from Tennessee, and I don't recognize the number. So I'm at the nurse's station. I immediately run into the bathroom, and I answer the phone, and it's the program director calling me directly to personally tell me that she would love for me to come and be a part of their program. Even years later, hearing me even say those words gives me chill bumps and chokes me up a little bit, because in that moment I knew my life is changing, my future is changing, my goals are happening. This is a moment I'll never forget. I tell you that because I hope it encourages you. You've listened to this long video talking about how I got rejected and how I went through this terrible experience in the beginning. And I hope that by telling you the victory that ended in that bathroom in the ICU with the program director on the phone with me, I hope that you understand that the rejections don't mean you're not going to get in. And I hope you understand also, those of you who have not applied yet, do not go in expecting that the first time you apply and the first time you interview somewhere, you're going to get in and there's going to be no problems. There are a rare few people that happens for. Do not expect that to be your experience. You can do this if you're passionate about it and you want this and you're willing to keep working at it. You can do it. It's going to be expensive. I spent $2,000 total on interviews just alone. So that's a lot of money to invest in just trying to get into a program. I know others have invested lots of money too, in time and heartache. It takes a lot to get there. I'll tell you, once you get in, CRNA school is the worst 3 years of your life. Once you get out, you still have challenges. My day-to-day life as a CRNA is not beautiful and perfect and no issues at all and no stress and all this, but it's worth it. It's a career that I love, and that I think if you do the work to get there, you'll love as well. Well, all right, guys, that was my story on rejection, how I didn't get into CRNA school in the beginning, and how I did by the end. I hope that encourages you and gives you a little bit of inspiration. Most of my videos are just vlogs about kind of my life and my experiences, but I hope some of that helps you out. Comment down below if you've ever been rejected from CRNA school, or if you're worried about being rejected and just want a little encouragement from some of your friends. And until next time, that's Bolt out.